on a side street.
I have a live perspective on this. You're seeing a 30-second delay. We'll obviously be able to notify you if there's something we don't want to show. The live image shows, actually at this point, something symmetrical to what you're seeing now. He's going with the flow of traffic on this span. Law enforcement close behind.
And I guess they are being careful because he is vulnerable. He doesn't have any protection on that bike other than the helmet he's wearing. So they're not, I'm sure someone would say, well, why don't you just kind of block him and let him run into you? I think they're obviously being sensitive to not injure this man. There's
different protocols for different types of vehicles during pursuits. In fact, if he was on a dirt bike, there are several municipalities and several law enforcement agencies that have a no pursuit policy. There are things that get calibrated when you're talking about a motor vehicle versus a motorcycle or something even smaller like a dirt bike.
Well, and also you wonder, I know a lot of jurisdictions, because there have been accidents when police pursue, that you wonder what they were pulling him for initially. I'm sure now they know a lot about this guy because they've been staring at his license plate on the back of that bike. You know, I just wonder at what point they might let him go and catch up with him later, track him down later.
Just put the tax down on the ground.
I'm not sure if there's aerial law enforcement above this as there is with the Chopper 4. Aerial law enforcement gives you a lot more flexibility, but clearly we've got to read on him because there's overhead views.
Well, there's also there is a searchlight from above on him, so, which I would assume is coming from a police chopper.
And again, just to reset again, if you're just joining us, we have been following this breaking news in Loudoun County. This is a police chase of a motorcycle. It started with a traffic stop. The driver of the motorcycle was pulled over for a traffic stop and then took off on his motorcycle. And we have been watching this now for the better part of, what would you say, Wendy?
15 minutes?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes now.
And we don't know when we came in about 15 minutes ago. We don't know how
true.
long it's been going on.
This may have been going on much longer than that. We have Chopper 4 up above the area, giving you an aerial view.
Man,
and as
he's
you can
off.
see, at times, his acceleration just completely pulls away from the officers who are pursuing him.
Kate, where did you say he is now? He's on Route 20? He's on Route 20 now. So he's on Route 28. He's just making use of, you know, the path of least resistance. And as you see, when he gets an open stretch, he guns it. So he's heading back towards Leesburg at this point.
In about 30 seconds, you're going to see the rider, the operator of this motorcycle slow for a moment, then look back to look at what kind of police are behind him. He actually slows and turns his entire body, cranes his neck around to see the law enforcement behind him. It's about 15 seconds away. He's obviously measuring the law enforcement response here. So stand by, it's about to happen.
And you got to wonder about what it's like for these motorists who are just trying to get home, and they've got all of these flashing lights and this drama playing out in and around them. And I imagine this is creating quite a challenge for police to figure out where he's going to go so that they can't sort of head him off at the pass because he's so nimble on that vehicle, on that bike. So again, this is a man who was being pulled for a traffic stop and then apparently took off, and police have been in pursuit of him now for a little more than 15 minutes, possibly longer. He's been on Route 7 in Loudoun County by Dulles, then he was on Route 28, now he's back on Route 7, and he's just sort of staying within that vicinity, just weaving his way through traffic, and the police just following him, sometimes trying to cut him off, but again, doing so in a way that they don't ram him because
he's about to approach some traffic lights and a heavier flow of traffic here. This could get a little bit more dicey because you'll see some intersections coming up that have got traffic on all sides, and he's got to negotiate some green lights.
And at the same time, just about 10 minutes ago, we saw him blowing through stopped traffic, weaving in and out of the lanes in a way that some of the police cruisers couldn't follow. Again, Chopper 4 giving you a vantage point and a look at this that otherwise we'd have no way of being able to get with the amount of distance that he has covered and how quickly he has moved at times.
And at times, it almost looks like he's got a police escort because he slows down, they slow down. This has got to be a tricky maneuver. It'd be interesting to talk to law enforcement after this and say, what is the protocol? What does the handbook tell you in boxing off someone like this? Scott, you know everything more than we do.
You see, you have multiple jurisdictions and different law enforcement agencies pursuing, and there's always the possibility of a variety of response techniques and a variety of protocols here, but the lead agency is going to be the most local. It's going to be Loudoun County. Virginia State Police bring extra capabilities. Fairfax Police bring extra capabilities as well as proximity to this. But your local law enforcement agency is probably lead here, because I believe, if I'm seeing these cruisers correctly, when we get a close-up look, these appear to be Loudoun County cruisers.
Yes.
So they're obviously running lead here. But they do train on this. Law enforcement trains on pursuit, and they train on multi-jurisdictional pursuit, Wendy and Chris, where they figure out how do they deploy together. Because often when you have a pursuit, it goes through county lines, it goes through municipal lines. So law enforcement is quite good at training on how to work together in high-speed situations.
See, I knew you would know more about that, but I'm sure that being on a motorcycle or going after a motorcyclist is more of a challenge. And what about when they put those strips out across the road that blow their tires? I know that's tricky because you got to make sure you're way up ahead of them and that the person doesn't see you do it, because especially this guy, as nimble as he is.
When it comes to, again, my reporting's been on dirt bikes, which are obviously smaller and more vulnerable than motorcycles, but I know one of the reasons they have a no pursuit policy for dirt bikes is because you can't do things like that, Wendy. You can't use stop strips. You can't use some of the deterrents you often use in other high-speed pursuits. This may be trying to thread the needle here. We have a motorcycle, not as small and vulnerable as a dirt bike, but also not as sturdy and perhaps stop strip-able as a vehicle.
Right, especially with someone who, as you said, is negotiating all of the different roads out there and negotiating the traffic, whether it's been stopped. I've seen him go through intersections where he doesn't have the light, and he's able to still, as you said, just thread the needle of the cars going through, and bam, then he hits it and floors it.
I think people who commonly travel Route 7 in Loudoun County would tell you this bears no resemblance to traditional 5:35 p.m. traffic on Route 7 on a weeknight. This is far from rush hour. It's the nature of Veterans Day. It's the nature of a federal holiday. Of course, that gives openings, for a pursuit. When you have a lesser traffic volume, you've got more potential and more flexibility to move through. But I believe we've been told by law enforcement they've been doing some blockades in certain areas on traffic to mitigate and minimize the risk to other drivers.
Yeah, we've seen that, Scott, where at times the driver is just driving unimpeded on relatively empty stretches of road. So you can see that there are points where police have been able to stop traffic and block it off.
He's about to, Chris, I believe he's about to pass an interchange or on-ramps to Route 15. So you're getting into that area of Loudoun County. If I know Loudoun County well, when you get closer to Route 15 and 7, you're getting to heavier volume areas. You're getting to more populous areas, have more trafficked areas. Okay,
I'm hearing from our technical director, Tripp, to ask about a pit maneuver. Do you know what that is?
No, but we'll try to find that out.
Well, maybe we should go interview Tripp in the control room.
Well, you can see right there, you can see that heavier traffic that Scott was just talking about, and you can see he has slowed down considerably compared to the speeds that he was at just a couple minutes ago. I'm not sure if there's any communication between some of the officers who are in pursuit and the motorcycle driver himself, but it appears to me that he is slowing down and the officers are slowly trailing him as he moves through this area, and he's just past that light, and there he goes again, making a left-hand turn and now going the opposite way once again. We saw this just about 5 minutes ago.
Pit maneuver, Wendy, would be a way where you force the operator of the vehicle being pursued to go sideways. Perhaps not to spill, but to take a sideways maneuver, which obviously stops you, at least momentarily, and gives law enforcement an opportunity to try to pin you against a door or just stop you by hand. So a pit maneuver would actually try to force you to go perpendicular to the way you want to go. Well, my goodness, now I'm wondering why they're not trying a pit maneuver. Motorcycles do change the game.
Yeah, you can see the difference in how nimble he is. When he gets to some of these intersections where there's a tremendous amount of traffic, he's just riding the lanes. I mean, he's cutting right down the middle, whereas some of the cruisers have to go around that traffic. So, it's definitely a different situation than if they were, in pursuit of a car. that could get blocked up at some of these congested areas.
He's about to approach a pretty sharp turn here, and there's going to have to be, with the way the law enforcement's kind of husbanded next to him, he's going to have to try something relatively daring to get around this next turn. I think you're about to see it. You see, they're pushing him to the left turn only lane. Look how sharp this is.
Hey, that's
he's
to
get around.
Now, call me crazy, but what would happen if they just gave up this pursuit? They have his license and just caught up with him later, rather than allowing this to create this kind of havoc over over all these miles in the community. What's the protocol on that? What if everybody just went back to their business and they went to his house and caught him later?
Though we were told that this was initiated because of a traffic stop or something that happened during a traffic stop, it's hard to know the other mitigating factors law enforcement saw during that traffic stop. Pursuits that begin with traffic stops often having what they call amplifying factors, other things that might have caused them to want to pursue. So it's hard to make that determination now. He, though, certainly seems to be going in either concentric circles or kind of retouching old ground here. We're seeing the same landmarks as this continues on and on.
Yeah, he's back on Route 7 again. As you said, he's almost sort of clover-leafing through the highway system out there. He's now traveling east on Route 7 again.
And when he goes east on Route 7, he does leave himself vulnerable to hitting a volume of traffic. We've seen that there are cars that do line up in this spot. And it slows him down, but it also changes the complexion of the situation for law enforcement.
Well, I think because I think it's almost easier for him when he has traffic.
Now stand by. I'm sorry. Stand by here. We're about to see some activity in the next 20 to 30 seconds. He's going to hit that volume of traffic. You see it there. He gets caught up, and either he's about to give up on the vehicle, or he's out of fuel. So.
I was going to ask how long a motorcycle goes before it runs out of gas.
Stand by for this. I'm watching this a bit ahead of you, so he's about to surrender this, but I want to make sure we want to show what's about to happen. You see him here slowing down. His speed is obviously decelerated. He pulls aside voluntarily, and these are empty lanes, and he's about to stop.
Oh, you're right. It looks like he's on empty.
He's calling it a day. You'll see cruisers come in from both directions.
He's kneeling on the. He's lying.
Yeah,
oh,
he knows exactly what to do. He's got his arms out.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as if he prepared the choreography of a surrender.